But first tonight, brand new trial on your front row seat to justice involving a guy who likes the spotlight. And I don't know if he likes the spotlight that he has right now on court TV as a criminal defendant, but his name is Geoffrey Paschel. He was one of the stars of 90 Day Fiance, and now he is on trial for assault and kidnapping of his ex. It's a contentious case. Chanley Painter has the backstory.
Finally.
Fans of 90 Day Fiance before the 90 days tuned in to follow the budding romance between Geoffrey Paschel and his Russian girlfriend, Maria Molina.
I don't want to die.
They were a popular couple until fans learned that Paschel was facing domestic assault charges. He is accused of attacking girlfriend Kristen Wilson in June of 2019.
The fans off the show got together and said, we don't think that Geoffrey should be allowed to tell all because he has a history of domestic violence. And that swayed the producers and was not invited to the tell-all. And we never got to hear if he chose, if he was still with Faria.
Dropped from the season finale, the reality TV star went online and denied the allegations.
I know what happened. You know, I was there.
Paschel told Dominic Nadi, a radio and YouTube host, he was going to fight the charges.
This is all just a ploy. This is all just an agenda to try to make me lose custody of my child.
Paschel is charged with aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, interfering with an emergency call, and vandalism. According to the arrest affidavit, Wilson said Paschel was in an intoxicated state and assaulted her at her home. Wilson told police he grabbed her by the neck and slammed her head against a wall several times and then thrown to the ground. According to the police report, Wilson was displaying typical symptoms of a concussion, and she was taken to the hospital for further treatment. Police found Paschel at his home. He claimed Wilson's injuries were self-inflicted. Officers arrested Paschel and said that after he was placed in their patrol car, he tried to kick the windows out and needed to be restrained. Paschel says he rejected a plea deal and wants to go to trial to prove his innocence.
And they offered me no punishment whatsoever just to have it on my record. I said no, absolutely not.
Doesn't take the deal, wants to fight it. Well, he's now fighting it, and you're able to see it right here on Court TV. Today was day one inside that courtroom, and this is a case of, it's not the most complicated case. It's not going to be a long case, but it's not necessarily an easy case for the jury, because I believe he is going to testify and testify to something much different than his ex will be testifying to. Well, she took the stand today. She took the stand, important witness for the prosecution. Take a listen to Kristen Chapman here, describing what she said happened to her at the hands of Geoffrey Paschel.
I want to talk to you specifically about the events of June the 9th, 2019, okay? Do you recall that day?
Yes.
Now, I want to back up before the early morning hours. What had the two of you all done the night before?
We had gone to dinner.
And I'm going to have you, maybe you'll just pull that up.
Sorry.
Soft-spoken.
Just keep hitting this trash can. We had gone to dinner at the North Shore Brasserie. We were there for several hours. We had drinks and dinner, and when we left, we went back to my house. We had plans to go meet a friend at Roosters, which is right near my house in Rocky Hill. So we stopped to let my dog out, and I walked her by myself up the street to the cul-de-sac while he stayed at my house. And I returned home. I walked back up the street. I texted my friend Katie and told her that we were leaving and we would see her shortly. She was also on her way there. I remember sending the text message. I remember exactly where I was standing in the street in front of my neighbor's house. And I remember walking back up the driveway. But the next thing I remember, he was beating me.
You said you all had dinner and drinks. What were you
Yes.
drinking?
Champagne.
Do you recall how much you had to drink?
I recall that I had 3 glasses of champagne.
Who was driving that night?
I drove.
Okay. And did Mr. Paschel have anything to drink?
Yes.
And what do you recall what he was drinking?
Double whiskey and Cokes.
Okay. And so when you get back in the house, you said, tell us exactly what you remember as soon as you get back into the house after walking the dog.
After coming up my driveway, the next thing I remember, I was on the floor in front of my staircase that leads to the upstairs, and he had me by the back of my head and was hitting my face into the floor, and I was screaming for him to stop.
Okay. Is that all that happened, or?
No, from there, he dragged me up the stairs. It's not quite a split level, but there's like 4 stairs that lead up to the bedroom, and it's hardwood floors, and he was dragging me by my head and by my hair. He had me kind of by the back of the neck, and we went up the stairs towards the bedrooms, and I blacked out again. I lost consciousness.
She's describing a horrific attack here. You know, head being smashed into the ground, dragged up the stairs, and blacking out and not remembering everything. The question is, will this be enough to convince the jury beyond any and all reasonable doubt? This is the key to the prosecution's case. Obviously, this is the key. You've got the direct evidence, the victim testifying. And we cover a lot of murder trials here at Court TV, so it's rare that we have the victim actually speak inside the courtroom, but that's what we have here. Let's bring in our think tank, get some reaction tonight. Joining us in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy. In Los Angeles, California, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. And in Phoenix, Arizona, the attorney who represented Jodi Arias and the author of the book series, Trapped with Miss Arias, Kirk Nurmi is with us. Great to see everyone. Eklund, let me ask you how it changes things. Let's start there. First, we have an actual victim in this case. We cover a lot of murder trials here on Court TV, so it's rare that our viewers get to see and hear from an actual victim. How does that change the dynamic inside the courtroom when you have the victim being able to come into the courtroom and tell their story?
Oh, it just makes you want a plea deal. At this point, it's kind of sad because essentially she's describing him going full narcissist, like a narcissist going full narcissist, and this is what's happening. That compared in the totality of the circumstances in which how he acted in the cop car will just go to how violent he actually can be. So is it good for him? It's absolutely not. She was a great witness. She was poised, and you can still see that she kind of had some fear still. It took a lot for her to be on the stand. I congratulate her. That is hard work, and she did that. And to really confront her abuser was a major thing, and she did it. But she also showed just how frightened she was at the time and how she still is frightened.
Nima, as a prosecutor, when you have a live victim, how does that change things for you? You're able to, call her and have her on the stand. It becomes a real person. To me, it's much more powerful when you can do that.
Vinny, it's everything. That's why even in murder cases, some states allow for that spark of life where you can talk about the victim. But especially in domestic violence, it's so critical to have that victim be on the stand and to testify. Because I've tried a lot of state cases, and I could tell you, more often than not, by the time the case goes to trial, the victim recants, they've reconciled, and those are very challenging cases. So I have to give her credit. This is very difficult to do for victims of domestic violence, is that psychology of abuse. For her to take the stand and to look at those jurors and look at her abuser and tell her story, that's something that's very powerful and something that you absolutely love if you're a prosecutor.
All right, Kirk, there's one part of this story that is interesting to me, and we heard it in Chanley's setup piece, that he was offered a deal with basically no punishment and refused it. He wants his day in court. This is a defendant who wants to be heard. This is a defendant who will not admit to anything. What is it like representing someone like that when you're offered what seemed to be, a pretty lenient plea deal, if in fact you're not going to do any time whatsoever? What's it like when you have a defendant who is convinced that they need their day in court and did nothing wrong?
Well, look, the only thing you can do is advise them otherwise and talk about some of the things that Nima and Eklund have just talked about, how powerful this testimony can be, how they're going to want to side with the victim, how they might connect with her. But that's maybe not going to get through to him. I mean, you mentioned earlier, this is a guy who likes the spotlight. My opinion is that Mr. Paschel thinks he can make a better connection with the jury, that he thinks that his story will be the one that's believed. He is probably cast himself or believed himself to be an artful and skilled liar, and he believes he's going to get away with it. And he may not be enjoying being a criminal defendant, as you said earlier, but I think in his head he is anticipating some kind of victory tour that I don't think is ever going to come. He's going to anticipate exoneration, and the sad reality is for him is that's not going to come. And as an attorney, all you can do is advise him of that, because one of my lines was always, I don't have to live with the consequences. You do. It's your choice. It's in your lap, and takes all the pressure off the attorney and puts it right back on the defendant. And if he or she wants to take the stand, like I think we're going to see in this case, they have that right, and you can't stop them.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see Geoffrey Paschel on the witness stand. And at this point, I think he has to take the stand. Let's watch, though, the cross-examination of Kristen Chapman by Paschel's attorney.
Do you recall ever falling?
I remember being pushed down, yes,
Pushed?
falling onto the ground from being pushed.
Falling or stumbling into a doorway?
No.
Is it, okay. Do you ever recall stumbling as you exited your residence?
No, I did not stumble on the way out
Okay.
the door.
And also last time we talked, I asked if you were drinking Tito's and vodka at the brasserie in addition to the champagne and the wine, and you said you didn't recall.
I do not recall drinking anything other than champagne that evening.
But it's possible?
No, I only recall drinking champagne that evening.
Okay, Eklund, how much will the defense here blame it on the alcohol? Right? It seems like, okay, you're drinking vodka, champagne, you're stumbling, and you fell into the wall, and that's how you hurt yourself.
Yeah, but they're not really doing an effective job. The issue is that you don't want to leave any room, especially if you're cross-examining. You just want a yes or no, and you always ask a question you know the answer to. And you're leaving her, what I see is that the defense is kind of leaving her to clear it up and clean it up, and we don't even know where he's going with it. Yes, she's admitted to drinking champagne, but you have to punch it. Didn't you drink alcohol? Wasn't champagne involved? Are you sure you just drank champagne? Did you drink anything else? Like, he had to punch it, and you left it kind of open for her to just explain herself, and really it just looked sloppy on the defense's side.
Kirk Nurmi, let me ask you, if in fact you cross-examine someone this way and they answer the way that Kristen answered there, it seems you need to have something else in your back pocket, like a videotape of her stumbling, or a witness other than Geoffrey Paschel saying he saw her drinking vodka, or some receipt or something, right? I mean, if it's just going to be Geoffrey Paschel saying, oh, she was drinking alcohol, oh yeah, she was stumbling, that may not be enough here.
Well, you're right, and to some degree, I agree with Eklund. They're ultimately shooting themselves in the foot because they don't have anything to back this up. But I think this gives more of an indication that I think we're going to see Mr. Paschel testify, because he's going to be the one. He's going to describe all this extra drinking. It's all going to depend on him. I agree with Eklund. I don't think this cross-examination was very good. They could have focused on some of the things that she could not avoid admitting. And then if they know whether or not their client's going to testify, supplement it there. But this cross-examination, all it did to me is reinforce the validity of what this victim was saying.
All right, Nima. Nima Romani, it seems as we sit here tonight that Geoffrey Paschel is going to take the stand tomorrow. You're the prosecutor tonight. What are you doing to prepare for that?
You're just licking your lips because you love it when a criminal defendant takes the stand, because it doesn't always happen. And here's someone that's going to come across as arrogant, good-looking reality star. So you're going to absolutely destroy him. And, I agree with Kirk and Eklund. This is probably a setup for something else, or a terrible cross-examination, more likely a setup for what Paschal's going to say. And he's going to use the, good old fell into a door defense. Well, we know that's not going to work, but that's what we're going to hear tomorrow. And if I'm the prosecutor in this case, I can't wait for him to get up there and to spew lie after lie.
All right, we shall see. Don't forget, tomorrow our coverage continues. Big moment anytime a criminal defendant takes a stand. But when a reality star takes a stand in his own defense, kick it up a notch.